The question I normally ask people is, when you stare into a body of water, do you see your reflection in the water? Do you see the water being you? Do you call them your cousin? Because that's 70% you. It's closer than your best friend to you in terms of what's in you.
Water, that is you. Whether it's a lake, ocean, whatever it is, it's a living thing. It's a living entity. It's just not something you drink and be done with it. You worship it, and you see this respect and reverence in the film. You see different perspective, totally different perspective here. And as you well said, in India has that duality, that deep respect for nature, and then there's some exploitation also. So which one you want to go after? Taking care of yourself does not mean you go buy nice clothes and shoes and all of this. Taking care of yourself, what are you breathing? What are you drinking? What are you eating? And how is your environment? Within P&G, I work in the information technology area, but I'm part of many different initiatives. I volunteer and go do that. And the company allows you and gives you space for employees to go contribute. So the idea is, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution?
Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. My guest today is multi-talented, multi-global award-winning Padma Chebrolu. Life journey begins in India with the current chapter playing out rather excitingly in the US. She holds a bachelor's degree in education from Osmania University in Hyderabad, India, a master's of education from University of Cincinnati, an MBA from Xavier University, and a postgrad in business development from Stanford. So up until this point, she's followed the traditional Indian education life cycle of becoming a master of everything. Every Indian friend I have is so educated. It's unbelievable. She teaches MBA courses at Xavier and has worked for Procter & Gamble for decades. She currently holds the position of Group Director, North America Market Operations Portfolio. Padma also founded the Cultural Center of India out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and Austin, Texas, about 3 decades ago, with a purpose to offer an array of artistic classes to promote harmony and a vibrant community. Again, very much like a lot of my Indian friends, I feel like a lot of Indian people just culturally or within their traits, they have 3 things. They have this curiosity for education always, to improve themselves through education. And when the means are there, it always almost transpires. 2, they have a spiritual imprint within themselves. The religion is such that I think Hinduism is such that it touches on the spiritual aspects of humanity. It's not just a follow the religion. It brings that in. And the 3rd thing is the arts. Most Indian people are somehow artistically gifted, whether it's dance, whether it's music, whether it's filmmaking, painting, drawing, cloth making. There's some kind of art involved in, and it comes with the culture, the colors and everything else. Now, going back to Padma, recently, like I said, art. She's produced, directed, written, and starred in her film, Passage of the River, which releases soon. She's won over 30 international film awards for her powerful film, which we'll talk about. And somehow she still finds time to volunteer on several nonprofit boards and also donates blood and bone marrow. So with all of this, hello, Padma, and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues.
Thank you, Ali. That was an incredible introduction.
You like that? Okay.
You have so many insights into Indian culture, Indian psych. So it's incredible.
Yeah, I've told you before, I'll say it again, here and everywhere. I think India is one of the most amazing nations in the world. It is one of the oldest cultures of the world, and nobody can understand India, even by traveling to Mumbai and or Goa or anything like that. You really need to do what I did and take a few months and travel north to south through the villages, through the different cultures, through the different people, and then kind of like that. What was it, Julia Roberts movie? You got to get that experience in, right? When you get that in, you start this whole new appreciation of a world you don't even understand. It's kind of like a planet of its own. So yeah, I love it. And with that, let's go to a young Padma in India. Can you run me through life and growing up? What were your aspirations as a little girl? Did you think you would be in Cincinnati or Austin? Doing what you're doing. Did you think a film? Like, what was going on in your head? How do you grow up?
Yeah, great question. So the beginning, right? So my name Padma Chebrolu means Padma from this town Chebrolu. So that's where my ancestors are from. It's a very small town. So that's how my name comes together. And I was born in a small town called Guntur, and that's where my grandparents and aunts and uncles were all there. And my dad worked for Indian IRS. And he used to
Okay.
get transferred every 2 3 years. So we moved around the state of Andhra Pradesh quite a bit. So at the end, we settled down in the largest city, capital city of the state called Hyderabad. And I went to 11th and 12th grades there, and then did my undergrad. As you said, the curiosity of higher education, right? So that's how I came to US with full scholarship. I was able to attend the grad school here, and then Cincinnati is where I came, and then Cincinnati became home. So back in India, when I was 3 years old, my dad was into a lot of performing arts.
Hmm.
He loved movies, theater, music, dance, everything you can imagine. So I was the youngest. I was a guinea pig for him. So he put me in every art form you can imagine. So even though I was 3 years old, I started learning dance in the neighborhood studio. And I was very drawn to it. So I remember even now in the first classes, because I was a US student, there were lots of kids. I was put all the way in the back of the class. And and my goal was, oh, what's happening in the front? I want to be in the front, so I could get the full attention of the teacher. So there was this drive to be that artist, that perfectionist, and I learned Indian ballet and several classical dance styles. And I was in theater. I wrote poetry. I learned music, classical music, and I worked for All India Radio, youth programming, and I was also in television, did some sitcoms and episodes, and then I was a child artist in some movies. So I did all of that, and I loved, doing all of it. And then my dad encouraged me all the time, and he would brag about me, of course, all the time. His goal was to make me like a movie star or something, but I knew from the get go, yes, these are enjoyable, but you cannot make full time job out of it, livelihood out of it. Education was not a big deal for women in our families. So if you think of it, my mom probably went to second grade, right? Um, you usually get 10th grade, go to 10th grade, and then get married and become a homemaker kind of a thing, was generally what is followed by the women. So I broke all the rules, all the conditions, all the barriers. So people talk about me, but I'm just going to do what I want to do because I'm not doing anything wrong here. So that's how my childhood was. Bit controversial in doing all of these new things for them,
And
right?
and and for
Uh,
people who don't know India, when she says bit controversial, it's not bit. It's like historically Mary coming back with Jesus in her hand, and people saying, "What the hell happened?" Right? It's that kind of controversy. I mean, rightfully, as you say, especially a generation back, and especially from small towns. Exactly like you say, women were homemakers, and basically you became a mom. You took care of the next generation of family. You instilled those values into your sons and daughters, respectively of their gender, and and it's come a long way, hasn't it? Like right now in India, uh, the shift, the I guess the feminism and the allowance for women to not so much, but it's starting to move forward. Like I still see a lot of issues there in terms of rights for women and equality and unfortunately the rape culture and stuff. But it's really changing. It's really advancing over the last 20-30 years that I know of.
You're right on. We are seeing big change in the last 20, 30 years. So my next generation, my nieces or nephews, they don't have all these barriers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you go for education all you want. You want to be an artist, go do it. You want to go, to pursue some unique career, you go do it. So right now they are very advanced. So very happy to see all this social change. So the pioneers have done their work. So
Yes.
now this generation is reaping the fruits of that labor, I should say. And also, 75 years ago we got the independence, so it took us a long time, to get to where we are right now and
Yes.
advance to this level. So many elements kind of contribute to this kind of effect, but at the end I turned out okay, I guess.
You turned out very okay because you covered all the education that nobody can kind of brag about their children to your mom and dad, because that also happens a lot. And you also covered the artistic side because you have a film now, so you've covered all the bases, so you're doing good.
Thank you.
I mean, you first started out in education. Did you think you want to be a teacher? I mean, that what drove you to education?
Yeah. So my thinking was, I want to be a teacher. I love teaching. Even today, I teach dance and art. So even at
And
work,
MBA programs, like
yeah,
not only art. Yeah.
I worked for about 7 to 8 years as a adjunct professor at the Xavier University, taught MBA and executive MBA classes. I taught, strategic information technology to the executives, things like that. So I have the natural ability for teaching. So when I was in my senior year, I was already offered the job of fifth grade math teacher. That was my dream come true. So I loved it. And that's something our family was very happy about, that, and I like being around children. So I love math. So all that came together. So, and this opportunity to pursue further education came. So I continue doing that. Yeah.
So how did Cultural Center of India really blend into this vision of becoming a school, elementary school or university teacher or professor? How did these two come together?
So when I was a grad student at the University of Cincinnati, people came to know she is a classical dancer. So usually there's a lot of respect when you're like a ballet dancer, basically in our cultural ballet. So that is very few people can do it. Very few people can do it authentically and in a very presentable way, pleasant way. So people were excited. They would put me in, and we had a India Student Association. There's every university has that.
Hmm.
So they would have these events, cultural events. So they would put me up, the first performer to open the show, kind of a thing. So, and then people started asking me for lessons. In those days, there were not that many dance teachers around. So I started teaching even back in India when I was a teenager. I was teaching to the neighborhood kids. That's the best way to learn. When you teach, you learn better. You become a better performer
Mhm.
also. You'll go more deeper into it. So that's just, it grows you. So, um, and then I started getting invitations to perform at different events and talk about India's culture, different workshops or international festivals. So I thought to myself, okay, we need to organize this a little better. So what is that I'm bringing forward, what is that I'm excited about, so the culture. So I do more than dance. So, dance itself is a culmination of many art forms. So I wanted to create an organization that's easy for people to understand what we offer, what we bring forward. So it's just building the bridge, harmonious way to build a bridge. So I started this organization I started calling it Cultural Center of India. And we are affiliated with all the local library systems, all the school systems, and a lot of arts organizations and some government arts organizations. So over the years, we have all these collaborative aspects happening.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I've looked at your website, and there's a lot of performance art stuff there, and a lot of videos. So I went through those, and they're really nice. So people go look at Cultural Center of India for the people in those areas. Now, from there, your love of arts kind of drove you to do something more purposeful with the arts, in the sense of the social aspect of bringing to light some of the issues that we deal with, socially. And I think Passage of the River, the film, is not so much because I like, we have Compassiviste Film, and we, do short films. And I really believe in filmmaking as a form of expression that highlights something more than the entertainment value of it. Because today, film, even in India, India has a huge, film world, and Bollywood. And there's two kinds of films today being made in Bollywood. One is it touches at the core issues going on in India, the social issues, the environmental issues, the economic issues, family strifes, political corruption. It touches on all these things, just like it used to be in books in India. You go back 2 generations, and it was the authors that were doing this through books, you know and then some of those books got taken and made into movies, and now all of a sudden you have these grand movies that are talking, but it came from the books. But today a lot of people are doing it through film, and you see the public appreciating it as well, the new generation, because they're not looking for the Amitabh Bachchan going in and killing everyone, and the Rambo Indian film of the 80s. They're looking for something deeper contextually. So I think Passage of the River, for me, it highlights that. It highlights your ability to tell a story that is impactful and important for people to hear, and that this river, this Ohio River that you specifically, have this film around, is the same in every place that has a river. Because I think to myself, there's a river close to me, and I could pretend this is that. So it touches me on a personal level. Let's get into the film, and first, let's get into the basics, the history and the basics of the film. How did this idea come to you? How was it like doing all of it yourself? Writing it, producing it, directing it, acting in the film, and where did the concept come from? And then we'll get into the themes and the deeper stuff.
Yeah, this is a dream come true for me to make this film. So over the years, I have produced some dance DVDs, dance films, and so on and so forth. I was part of some documentaries, and I produced a few other things. So I wanted to really think about how do I pull all my skill set together. Making movie, I have all the skill sets, but I have to make that commitment to do it. And I since childhood, I have been oriented toward environment, my lifestyle, the way I think, the way I do things. I feel the trees, I feel the water. I feel very connected to it, and that's how I grew up. That's how I am. So that makes me a little different from everybody that my friends and all of that. So I knew I was different from everybody because I feel like, these non-human things are also part of me. right? So you think, this is your brother, this is your sister, this is your, uncles, aunts. So that is good. That's your family. But I feel like everything else is also my family. Why should that be any different? So, as 60 to 70% our body is water, right? And then the trees produce oxygen, and if you don't breathe for a few minutes, you die, right? So you're breathing like a 6 liter capacity of air all the time. So I have uh, very deep connection and commitment to trees and water. And they go beyond, a human being. He's from this country, she's from this country. They look like this. So all bias. They're basic foundational elements for any living thing to exist. So why wouldn't we focus on that? And you hear and see all of these things happening. So I've been involved in a lot of volunteer activities altogether. So I could write a book, right, about all of this, how it should be done. But would I reach all these people? So, how do I tell the story of a river, the story of the trees, in a very engaging way that has universal appeal? Like you said, I have a river here, this river here. Because I live in Ohio, we have the Ohio River that, grows across like 1,000 miles. So I was able to film based on the story and the historic nature of the river and the neighborhoods. The three dance films in this movie were produced a few months ago, and they already been nominated to many international festivals, and they won about 30 different awards. Even though they're dance sequences, but the inner message of the river and the environment and the sustainability spoke to all these 10 different countries, international film festivals. So I started building blocks. Okay, first I started with the dance films. I know I wanted to make this movie. I wrote different drafts of it. And then I had a couple of friends. I would run the draft through them. They would pinpoint, oh, okay, this sounds good, but, yeah, I could see then, it is there, but it's not fully engaging. So I started doing research on Ohio River and all the little towns around that. So I found very historical place called Augusta. It's in the next state called Kentucky, and it's only like an hour drive from here. So I started researching the historical significance of this town, the beauty of this town. I was able to do a couple of dance films there. So I got to know the environment there. So it just all the elements came together for me. And I needed to create a story, a movie that's accessible to everybody online. They can watch it, they can understand it. And, it's reachable, it's accessible to people. So that's how the movie came about.
It came about from experience, essentially. It came about from your love of, the essentials for life, all the way to. And I think that love also grows from, um, again, the nature of being Indian, growing up in India. Because when I was in India for a while, I realized the connection of humans to animals, the connection of humans to environment, and not from this new climate change perspective, just a natural sustainability value, especially when you move out of the main cities that are more, fast driven and plastics and stuff like that. When you go out of those, like you go out of Delhi, you go out of Mumbai, it's a different India. And in those parts of India, you see sustainability hand over fist everywhere, right? And you see the respect for animals and wildlife and the ways they deal with that. Like I've gone through areas and plantations where they dealt with elephants in a very respectable, like there was a two-way communication almost with the elephant. Like, I'll do this for you, you do, like there was respect even on the roads. And so it's a completely different sense. And I think that natural understanding of that really develops within you. When you look at water, you're seeing water very differently than when somebody who grows in New York City turns the faucet on and sees water.
Exactly. So the water is, whether it's a lake, ocean, whatever it is, it's a living thing. It's a living entity. It's just not something you drink and be done with it. You worship it, and you see this respect and reverence in the film. You see different perspective, totally different perspective here. And as you well said, in India has that duality, the deep respect for nature, and then there's some exploitation also. So which one you want to go after, right? So which party you want to join, right? So like you said, conservation, planting millions of trees, creating artificial lakes. Our ancestors, our heritage is so rich. If you think of even the native cultures, ancient cultures, they're very eco-friendly cultures.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So, even if I think back, how things were done at my grandma's house, right? How I do things. So, they're very eco-friendly lifestyles. Um, it's just the way our ancestors brought those traditions into your day-to-day life. So you understand it. I think over time, people lost all those explanations, all those understanding. They just do some things mechanically, or they just go after what's the trend out there. I'm going to go,
mm,
do that just because
yes.
it's going to be fashionable.
Or they follow the technology route because again, a lot of people don't use microwaves in India because of the respect to the way that food is prepared, versus a lot of people, they throw they have craft dinners in India. So like you said, there's that duality, and it really is affecting people's sustainability understanding and the eco-friendliness and the connection with nature, because we do become disconnected when we don't see the processes. One thing you touched on was, you said, the native communities, and there are many indigenous communities in India as well. And people don't know this. People think, when they
Yeah,
talk indigenous, they think Canada, US, Australia, Brazil. But I say, no, 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 no. You would be surprised. There's more indigenous communities in India than there's combined in these places. So there's a huge population, and you should really look at, you know, their knowledge and their education, from uh, fighting snake venom all the way, like medical information, right? That they use and it works, all the way to food, and knowing when food's gone bad or not, and like so many things they know from generations and thousands of years. So I fully understand what you're saying there. And again, that connected for you here in this river, because the
right.
Ohio River goes through a whole lot of uh, you know indigenous communities that live with the river. Like when I say
Exactly.
with the river, I don't mean they live beside the river. The river is part of their life, and a lot of people can't understand that kind of understanding of
Connection.
living with the river. Yes,
Yeah.
and
So
that's a
the
big part
main
of your film.
Exactly, exactly. So the main character is a naturopathy physician. So naturopathy is a proven medical field in India. People don't know it exists. They probably know Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is also another way of a medicine is practiced with natural herbs and way of living. Naturopathy is also so. To me, naturopathy and Ayurveda are just like phenomenal medical practices, phenomenal lifestyles. So in naturopathy, there's no medicine, but they cure the way you live in harmonious way with the elements. It just by being around the water, doing yoga. So you don't actually you save a lot of time, you save a lot of money, you have best of the best health, and
Hmm.
your brain is so clear in your thinking. When you wake up, you feel so light, right? you
Hmm.
can you can be active much longer in the day than anybody else. You can do so much more. So um, it's one of the best ways to live. So this film, having that character who is a naturopathy physician the lifestyle, what she does, how how she thinks about, how she connects with other people. It's a very, linked to or similar to how indigenous cultures lived in US, right? So that's how, if you think of, Australia, they probably do the same things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
The way they use the herbs, the way what they eat, how they use the materials that are available in the nature into their lifestyle. So you can still do it. Sometimes I go back and think about, how did my grandparents live? How did my parents live during my childhood? And there's no reason that's stopping me from living that way in a very eco-friendly way, even though I'm,
And
9,000 miles
healthier.
and healthier, right?
Yeah. That's what really excited me about the film, because um, in our publishing arm, in Compassiviste Publishing, we're actually right now putting together this book where we are working with multiple indigenous communities around the world, and we're trying to bring this knowledge, this indigenous historic knowledge that is not in any archive. If you go to the Mayo Clinic, you go to Cleveland Clinic, you will not find a book there with this, this education that is so amazing, right? I mean,
Yes.
to the point where you can cure cancer, to an extent,
Yes.
with some of this education. And it's true,
Mhm.
it's documented. I've seen people. I'm not talking about, you have stage 4, something that you're going to die from, and then they do some magic, but in a way, it creates a mindset and a flow through your energy, and it allows you to just be healthier. And I really appreciate and respect that over taking 6 pills a day that is supposed to balance you. So I love that you bring that out. I love that you bring the indigenous education out, because that's exactly why we're making the book, so that people look through this, and say, headache, okay, these things, these are the issues I'm having. This is why I'm getting migraines, because it's not natural to have migraines. You go into the wild, and animals are not having migraines. So why am I having migraine, in the city? There's a reason. I got to get to the bottom of the reason. I can't just look at it from, doctor, what do? I have a migraine, take this pill. I got to prevent it. So you're looking at things from
Yes.
that preventable perspective, which is
Right.
where I stand. I tell people, if you're curing a disease, you're already lost, because the disease came. The goal is to stop the disease from happening. And that's what your film is doing. Your film is saying, stop the water from becoming so polluted, so deteriorated, so troubling, that we need to bring in chemicals to clean it, because this water source, it should be clean in the way that it was for thousands of years. And then literally over 1 century, we destroyed a million years of people using that riverbed. It's insane.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
insane for me. And
So
and the proceeds from your film. Go ahead.
yeah, so the water, most of your body is water, right? 60 to
Yes.
70%. You don't have clean water now. How can we expect to have clean water in the next 10, 20, 50 years, right? So the film portrays how we can help the water,
Hmm.
how we can
Hmm.
help. It could be an ocean or river. What is it people can do? And also the trees are so connected to the rivers, right? So they manage the flood, they uh, calibrate how the river flows, right? And so there are so many things that trees and rivers do together. They go together. So we have ways to plant the trees, and I'm involved with planting trees, thousands of trees in my community. Now I want to take this next year into national level, where we can give away free trees so people can plant them at their houses. So it is so important to take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself does not mean you go buy nice clothes and shoes and all of this. Taking care of yourself. What are you breathing? What are you drinking? What are you eating? And how is your environment? I would like everybody to adopt a mile around them, because you're living there, you're breathing there, you're sleeping there. Why don't you want to take care of everything? If you take care of everything else, your well-being happens, right? So don't think narrowly, think a little bit more broader, right? So if you have the capacity to go volunteer at an organization who does this work, you don't have to start anything new. There are many, many organizations who already do it. Let's say you work at a company, the company has many initiatives, right? You go participate in it. You contribute to those initiatives that are sustainability initiatives. And so see what you can do. If you help that, it helps you. So there's an equation, right? A profit equation
Yes,
here. You have
yes,
to follow
yes.
that.
And you know what? Thank you for saying what you did, because um, a lot of people think that health and self-help and all those things is buying designer clothing, being able to go to the spa, being able to take vacations into warmer climates, especially in North America, and the Instagram effect. And it's not. Those are actually the things that cause you to become sicker than you already are, because you're already sick when you think that this is the solution. So to heal and to detoxify from this, you really need to start thinking the way you're thinking. And I love that you said do something, to join these things, because I was speaking to a, another artist, a very famous jazz musician, Rick De La Rada, and I asked him this question. I said, how do you become more sustainable, right? And he said one word: participate. He said, participate in the act of making the world more sustainable. Don't just sit there, participate. That's the first step. And, you go back to that and you say, participate in, take a mile. I love what you said. Take a mile around you, draw a radius of 1 mile, and see how you can better that mile. And if every human does this, imagine the world we'll live in the future, right? That is what
Exactly.
community is all about. That is community.
Yeah, take an audit of how your house is, take an audit of what you're doing and scale back, right? Maybe you want to take all the plastic out of your house and start using sustainable materials, So when I think back, okay, what did my grandparents do? Even in India, rural places, probably you have seen it as in your travels. For example, the water is put in a clay pot, a red clay pot, and
Yes.
we worship the water. We actually,
Yes. Yes.
and it filters, it makes the water, healthier for you. And we boil
Yes.
the water sometimes. And then also we use copper, iron kind of containers to store the water. So, oh yeah, I used to do that. Do I need to use a filter, right? So, um, and it might not sound logical, but in the movie, I keep praying to the water, I keep praying to the river. You would see that, and you might think, what is this? It's just water going from canal, it's from here to there. For me, I just look at it from a different perspective, different eye. I show respect to the river shows respect to me by giving its good water,
And,
right?
and I try to
So
understand the river, right? I mean, I see that's what you're also doing. You're trying to understand the flow and the purpose of the river. And a
yeah,
lot of people,
yeah.
like you said, they don't see it. They think for example, they think the lake is there for me to go with my boat and water ski on. That is the purpose that the lake exists. I'm going to build a house on the river, and I'm going to have a little area there, and park my boat and a dock, and then do barbecues, and no respect for the water, no cares. I don't even care that the water's there, how it got there, why it's there. None of those questions come to people's minds. They're just going to go for the long weekend to their cottage and enjoy the water.
Exactly, exactly. So in the movie, you would see the volunteers or the actors for, actually we clean the river. And we collaborated with these organizations where they continuously clean the river. Barges and barges of trash. It's just like shocking.
Insane.
When I went to this scene, I forgot I was producer, director, actor. I was emotionally so shocked and so drained just to look at this. And I somehow I need to get myself back together to do the filming, get the footage, make sure we are filming the right angles and, right activities, right people are being portrayed. It took me really a lot of inner strength to pull myself out there and be in action. And we were doing some focus groups, to look at our final edit of our movie this weekend, and people are just in a shock. They read about it, how much trash and how much stuff is in the river. These people are cleaning it. There are organizations who clean it, and there are some companies who send their employees to go clean the river for the day. And then planting trees, we give away to kids and the libraries and everything else, but you can plant trees, especially in my community. Usually, homes have land to plant trees, so for us that works really, really great. If you don't have it, you might say, "Okay, that's not going to work for me." But think about what can work in your neighborhood, what can work for your environment, for your weather conditions, for your financial situation. What is that you can do? Maybe you want to have a garden, maybe you want to volunteer somewhere. Maybe you want to start using, some of the natural materials, or maybe you don't want to buy certain products and look for other products. So internet is full of ideas. Social media is full of ideas. So I'm not going to tell you what exactly you should do. You know already what to do. So you said action out, be participative.
Yeah, exactly. And see water from a new light, because when you look at water, as you say, 70% of us is water. When you look at water, see if you can see yourself in there. Because if I look into a mirror and the mirror has some filter or veil that kind of covers 30% of me, and there's 70% left, I can still recognize myself in that mirror, right? Maybe the veil darkens or changes, the hologram, but I could still recognize, oh, this is my silhouette, or this is me, even at 70%.
That's you, actually.
But the question is, yes. So the question I normally ask people is, when you stare into a body of water,
that is
do you see your reflection? Do you see your reflection? Not physically standing over it and narcissist, but do you see your reflection in the water? Do you see the water being you? Do you call them your cousin? Because that's 70% you. It's closer than your best friend to you in terms of what's in you. So people need to do that. People need to start having those understandings and deeper conversations with themselves. And from a cultural perspective, also, your film is about going back to the indigenous and the environment and the education. It's all about bridging cultural divides through an environmental lens, because you're looking at water, you're looking at the communities it's affecting, you're looking at the histories it's erasing by polluting this. Like, you're really destroying so much more by just saying there used to be a river here, now there isn't, because there's a whole life around this river, not just human. I mean, we touch on the humans that live around the river and use it. We touch on the indigenous communities, but then there's a whole flora and fauna and animals and plants that depend on this river flowing at that speed. And we forget about that when we talk about the human aspects of it, which I really want to bring into the discussion, because, again, going back to India, there's a lot of rivers. And, even in Hyderabad, where you're from, there's a whole tiger community there. And those tigers live because of the waters. And then now the waters are drying, there's droughts, and the tigers are dying. So people have taken it upon themselves to irrigate the land so that the tigers don't die. And then in the heat of Hyderabad, for people who don't know, Hyderabad gets hell hot in the summer. And in that heat, those tigers die. And people are creating irrigation systems so that these tigers can cool down and have water and all this other stuff. And you start thinking, it didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to be that you need to now do something to save them. You should have thought about how to prevent that river from dying in the first place. But we made that mistake. That's fine. Are we learning? Are we going to let the Ohio River dry and become so polluted that we have a toxic sign on it that you can't even get near the waterfront of it? Or are we going to do something about it? And it goes to every place. And I know that you've won in context, you've won over 30 awards, and globally. I mean, when I say globally, I mean US and Costa Rica. Okay, that's an area of the world, but then Greece, India, South Korea. You know, that has nothing to do with the US market. But you've won awards there too, and it goes back to exactly what I said in the beginning. Everybody can relate to the river. You didn't take, I don't know, an American in Cincinnati and their specific lifestyle in Cincinnati that I would never understand living in Germany or South Korea, right? You took a river, a body of water that is identical all around, and you brought it to life, and you said, this is the person. You know this person, you know this person, everywhere in the world. You guys all know this person, and we're abusing this person. Each one of us is abusing this person. So now we need to re-understand this angel. I wouldn't even say person, because you place them in that, you place water on that pedestal with the worship, that you're saying, this is the person who's giving us life. Imagine how well we treat our bosses at work. Even if they yell at us, we'll say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Why? Because they give us sustenance. It's our boss who writes our paychecks. So in a sense, we're like subservient to them. But then
Right.
I could get fired. I could sleep on the street. I'm still breathing. My boss is not giving me air. My boss is not giving me water.
Water.
So
Yeah.
in that capitalist sense that you worship your boss or your corporation, start worshiping what truly gives you life. Because it's
Exactly.
not the corporation you work for. It's this. And the thing people forget is there is no new water.
Yeah.
We cannot go to
This
another
is
planet
it.
and get. This is it. There's all these jokes on the internet and other places that every time we drink water, we're drinking X amount of liters of dinosaur pee in it or urine and things like that. And the reason this becomes a scientific fact is because this is all the water we have. We were given a bottle of water at the beginning of time. God said, here's a bottle of water, and here's some seeds, and here's a fertile land. Go enjoy your life. This is heaven, And we took that, and for all these thousands of years, we did live that way. We were able to use it that way. And then all of a sudden, we got this ounce of technology thrown into the mix, and it's like this drop of poison that we put into the water. And now all of a sudden, over the last century, we've destroyed everything to the point that we're having conversations about existentialism. We're having conversations about how quickly can we get to Mars because Earth is finished, right? I mean, that's how dangerous the conversation. It boggles my mind. And those are all things you've touched on.
Oh, yeah. This movie addresses all those points in a very narrative way, in a very beautiful, scenic way, and celebrating the indigenous cultures. You talked about angel. So in Indian culture, all rivers are goddesses.
Yes.
That's how our traditional heritage, ancestral wisdom is. If you think of Native American culture, indigenous cultures, they see that being a spirit. A living being, in its own way. So, I feel very connected to Native American indigenous culture. That's why I brought those aspects. I brought that understanding into this movie. I shared the storyline with some of my indigenous friends to make sure that I'm portraying their side of the story accurately in this movie. I also spoke with a couple of professors who specialize in this area and the historical perspective to make sure the storyline is portrayed in a very respectful way. And then they're very close. If I think of it, they're
Yes.
not different. They're very, very close. We might wear different type of clothes. And when you think of these trees, I want people to understand, they are capable of planting trees. They're capable of, going volunteering, at the park or at the river or the lake. There are so many ways you can contribute. So I want everybody on the planet Earth. This is my wish. All 18 billion people, please empower yourself. There are many organizations doing what they can do, and many individuals. They could be in rural India, or they could be some, small, village. People are doing what they can, but that's not enough. we want to see everybody on planet Earth doing their part, understanding their carbon footprint and scaling it back. Even if you do 50%, even if you do 80%, even if you do 90%, it's less than what you're producing here, right? So don't worry about who's doing, not doing. Worry about what you are doing. And, the other piece is, I talk about taking care of your well-being, taking care of your well-being, inner and outer. So through relationships, through what you eat and how you live in cohesion with the rest of the environment, treating different kinds of people with respect. And, you see different kinds of people in this movie from all races, right? So, but they are harmoniously living together in this town. They come together when there is some tragedy that struck. So you can see how they all heal each other, right? That's the only way you can do it. And in India, we say namaste. That's like I respect the divine in you. So why do you want to put all this other stuff in your body? Respect it. Would you offer that to your God? What you're eating. So do treat this body as a temple. Treat because there is divine inside it. So these are the kinds of principles that we bring together in the focus group. I asked yesterday, do you want to take an intermission? They're like, no, don't leave us
We're
behind in
excited
here.
about it.
We
Yeah.
want to continue watching this
Mhm.
because there's suspense and there's music and there's art and there is comedy. Everything is, and there is emotional ups and downs are happening. The story is very engaging and flowing. Yeah.
Mhm. And really for me, there are two main themes that I love seeing there, and one is the interconnection of life in its different ways. It's a lot of films kind of show an interconnection, even and they capitalize on a lot of the social issues we face today. For example, say there's a war like there is right now in Israel, and there'll be a film coming out between a Palestinian and an Israeli who fell in love or whatever, something that harmonizes them, and then they showcase that. That's great, but I don't really see people going beyond the human relationships and trying to equate us with places that we don't understand. So when I say stand in front of a river and see if you can spot yourself, because you're 70% that, can you spot yourself? When the faucet is running, can you see yourself run? And if you can't, you're not connected to nature. So
Yes.
you don't have that concept of mother nature in you, right? And in essence, when you talk about the spirituality, the reason why, and this is also something that boggles people, you see pyramids in different parts of the world that have no interconnection with each other. You see education in the indigenous tribes of the Americas that are identical to the indigenous tribes in Brazil and India, like places that never met each other. Impossible. How did this all happen? I think it's connecting to nature, to that higher consciousness, to the oneness, right? To that unity of existence. And when people can do that, your thoughts and my thoughts will become identical, regardless, because that is the only path. That is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
only righteous path, right? There are
Yeah.
not many righteous paths. There is one universe, one righteous path, one flow in it. And so you tap into that, you're there. And, I've said this to you before, and I'll say this here. You're a compassiviste, because when I started Compassiviste, the meaning was compassionate activist. And
Yes.
you're actually living it. You didn't label yourself that, but
Nope.
you're living it. And so my idea was not to stamp the word on people's foreheads and say, okay, great, now you've joined. No, my idea was recognize that in yourself. Can you recognize all of the things you said are essentially being a company? Can you recognize that in you? If you can, and if you're increasing that level on a daily basis, then you are a compassivist, because you're trying to make that next step all the time. And this film really, the second important theme about the film to me is activating and igniting people into this relationship, which also holds within it the environmental focus, because it's not only oh, we need to move away from plastic because it's ruining the riverbed. No, it's much deeper. It's
Much
you got to
deeper.
understand yourself. You got to understand yourself within these contexts, and then that becomes an environmental issue. Because if I told people, take a saw and start sawing off your wrist, people would go, no, that's crazy. Why would you do
Yeah.
that? I say, you're doing that to your lungs every day. The
Yes.
cars you drive, the things that you're doing that to your lungs, that you're destroying your lungs every day. So how is that not crazy? But sawing your arm off is crazy. It's the same thing at the end of the day. So are you having those discussions with yourself? And you're really bringing that into conversation here. And you're also showing the effects, the tree planting, and like you said, the naturopathy of understanding your body, understanding your mind, understanding your soul, and how to essentially be healthy, from your diet to the way you live. Like, when you talk about the clay pots, I learned that in India, and the sedimenting of the water and everything else. And I was like, wow, this is science. Like, this is deep
It is.
science, it's very deep science. But we don't have this cataloged anywhere. Like, when you go and you become a scientist at MIT, you don't learn this. And that's the highest level of science we have in existence in the developed Western worlds. And you take that scientist and you put them in the middle of a forest and say survive for 3 days, you come back, they're dead on the second day. Why? Because they didn't even know which plant is safe and not. But remember, I think it was almost a year ago, but less than a year, I think for sure, a plane crashed in Brazil, and there were indigenous people on it. And a little girl, I think she was 12, and her younger siblings, one of whom was, I think, less than a year old, survived for days in the middle of the rainforest until they were able to reach them and save them. Why did that 12-year-old, how did that 12-year-old save herself and her siblings? I'll tell you how. Indigenous knowledge, wisdom. It wasn't the books she read. It wasn't the cartoons she's seeing on TV today. It was none of that, because none of that teach us about the environment and connection. It was the indigenous wisdom. And
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and for our political purposes, we want to kill that wisdom everywhere in the world. In India, in North America, all these governments are trying to corruptively suppress this wisdom, because if you give the indigenous communities this chance to say, we are wise, we can bring support to this country, you're opening this discussion of now they want to participate, now they want to be involved, now they want rights, they want all those things. No, we'll just give them land, and we'll take away the expensive parts, no taxes on liquor and stuff like that, give them all of that, let them enjoy their lives. Don't show up for the conversations, because if you do, we can't sell our corruption anymore. And that is the pain point I have, because a lot of this education that you're bringing to the table in this film is opening people's minds to the ancient wisdoms that have been swept under the rug. So I really, really, really thank you and appreciate that you've made this film. Now, to the audience, just a side note, all of these 30 plus awards globally, and the film isn't even out yet. So I'm waiting to see what happens when the film's out. Where can people watch Passage of the River? And yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, we are planning to release this in December 2024. And this movie will be available on online platforms. We are looking at Amazon.com Prime, YouTube, and Vimeo, those kind of platforms. And, we'll publish all that information on our social media when it is releasing, how you can watch it. And we are in discussions now. How can we make this movie accessible globally, worldwide? So we already have a lot of screening requests coming up from many environmental organizations and universities and schools, because this appeals to children, to adults, to people of any background. And it has powerful message, powerful story, and arts oriented. So the 1.5 hour movie, just, you will breeze through it. And it creates a thought process. It initiates you into action. It initiates you into inner dialogue, right? What is that I can do? I'm talking about all these other people. No, no, no. What is that I can do? So it's a lot of introspective. So please stay tuned. We are trying to bring this movie as quickly as possible forward. We are going to go for international film festivals, all of that.
And where do people, I'm going to put all the links down here, but just where is the best place for people to reach you, interact with you?
So all our social media, culturalcenterofindia.com, and we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So you can contact me, Padma at culturalcenterofindia.com, or, subscribe to any of our social media so you will get notifications. And we are planning to make future movies. We are understanding how this movie will be received, and I'm already getting a lot of requests. Is there a sequel for it? So I have 4 other movies in my head that I can create, because this kind of movies are not made. Nobody brings together an indigenous culture, Indian culture, and portrays the river as the main character of the movie, right? And talks about these things that that people forgot from their culture, from their ancestors. So it's kind of reviving, going back. To go forward, we need to go back a little bit and understand our ancestral wisdom and what is that you can do, what they did in your great grandparents' time, and how much of that can you adopt now. Based on your personality, based on your situation, what is that you can do? So it puts the power on the individual. It activates the individual. So these kind of movies that show respect to the culture, the arts, and present it in a very authentic way are very rare. So we are already getting more requests for that.
Yeah, and again, you're a Compassiviste because at Compassiviste Film and through the convention Compassicon, we're going to have a film fest, through Compassiviste. And the idea of this film fest is to bring in these films, these impact films that will make people change their habits and their ways so that we can save ourselves, so that we can save all the extinction that's going on around us. We're living at a time that saw the most extinction of species,
Yes.
as we're living. So
In my
we are
lifetime,
living
yes.
we're living in this moment. I want the arts. I love a beautiful painting of flowers. That's great. But I want that painting to be purposed to impact you, to think that those flowers are not going to exist, not to look at it from an artistic perspective of the brushstroke, because we don't live in that time zone anymore, in that time space anymore. So in the 1700s, yes, I could appreciate the shadows and the vibrancy of the colors and all of that. Today, I shouldn't be appreciating that as the primary essence. I should be appreciating the fact that the vase and the flowers in it can be in 50 years, they could just not exist anymore. And this becomes history, right? It becomes history. Like, take that in. That is art today. That is the expression that art should do. And the idea of the film fest is to bring people like yourself, because you're not the only one. There are so many people, but they don't get the studios. Yeah, if you went with this to Universal, they would say, "Get out of here." They wouldn't even let you through the gate, because it's not in the model of what they do.
Yes.
It's not.
It
It
doesn't
needs to
fit
have
the
some Tom
mold.
Cruise in it. Yeah, it doesn't fit the Tom Cruise mold. They will make Fast and the Furious until cars end, but they will not make one social impact film. So in a sense, we need the society, the people, us, community. Like you said, look at the 1 mile radius around you. I'm looking at the 1 mile radius around. I'm looking at the entire planet, and I'm saying, how do I help the entire planet? I need to get into the arts, because these people are trying to talk. Padma, as an artist, is trying to talk. I need to bring that microphone to her. I need to amplify her voice, because that is what my job is here, right? That is what my battlefield is, to bring you the amplification. And so people really need to support this. So even if you don't care, like at this point, I tell people, even if you don't care about this conversation, when you're going to sleep, just play the movie. Don't even watch it. Doesn't matter. Let that view come in. That's the extent of, I would like you to watch it. I would like you to participate. But if you're part of the people who says, absolutely not, I don't want to be a part of this, I don't care about the environment, none of this, that's fine. At least get the view so that these things grow. And with that, explain to the audience how the budget for the film came. How are you making money? How is this film actually sustainable?
Great question. I got a very small grant from Ohio Arts Council. I'm recognized as the master artist, master teacher for my lifetime achievement in art. So I made a proposal of this movie to them. So a small grant came through. And rest of the money I put it out on my pocket because I believe in this so much. And when I spoke with like-minded people, they saw how strong the storyline is, how powerful this movie could be. So I went in with it. So at this time, I'm debating how do I bring this movie out to more people. So, some platforms we might make it free of cost so it could reach more people. The purpose of the film need to activate every individual to go do something about, their well-being and their community well-being, right? So some platforms, by nature, they will charge you. So we might not recover all the money. If we do, great. My goal is, get this film out there and get people to watch it, take action. That itself is going to give me a lot of satisfaction. If something else comes through, we win lots of awards and, we get investment and we can make similar movies, but different angles, different perspectives that are very engaging stories. I mean, you don't see in U.S. films being made about Indian wisdom, right? You don't see movies being made about Native
No, there's a
Americans, indigenous
stereotype of
culture.
the Indian. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
stereotype
the
of the Indian in the
stereotype, which
movies,
is
and
it's
and
very
it makes a lot of
unfortunate.
money. Yeah, and
Yes,
you
it
see it
is.
even in the comedies, right? I mean, the you
It's
see it those of
embarrassing. Yeah.
yeah, but that's what it is. So sometimes people tell me, "Oh, you make us like right now." Believe me, there will be people in the audience who'll say, "Oh, Ali just stereotyped Indian people as educated, artistic." Good, good. I want people to stereotype Indian people like that because that's the truth, and it's a good stereotype. There's nothing wrong with saying almost every Indian person I've met has an artistic capacity. What is wrong with that stereotype? There's nothing wrong
It's a
with that. But
compliment.
then when you when you stereotype them like The Simpsons does, for generations, hammering into people's heads that a convenience store or gas station and hapu and the lifestyle and everything else, that is India. That is what people take. And then when a wise person comes and says, "I'm Indian," they look at them and they look at the generations of media that they've consumed about what an Indian looks like and acts like. They're shocked. They're like, "No, no. How are you? It's shocking. You as an Indian woman, even at work, outside of the art, because art liberates people in the artistic world. When you have your own control and power, you're liberated to express. But believe me, I don't know this, but I can almost guarantee that when you first started in the arts in America, nobody was willing to give you a spot as a ballerina because you're Indian. What do you know about ballet? Am I right or am I wrong about this?
It was not easy.
You're diplomatic, but yes, basically yes, it's not easy, right? Because it's very difficult. People don't appreciate that, or they don't respect it, they don't understand that this culture had ballet before you even had your first stage in theater in Times Square or any of those areas. So um, we need to revive that, and I'm going to
And
propose something to you. Go ahead.
yeah,
You say that
yeah.
first. What?
If I don't tell the story the way I think it's true, then someone else will tell my story the way they believe it should be told.
Yeah,
So
just like
it
they
is very
have.
important for me to continue to tell the stories the way we see ourselves.
Hmm. And the way you've lived it and experienced it and understand it correctly, versus somebody who's read about it somewhere. I actually went through this problem. When I was doing my master's in political science, the first day of school coincided with September 11, 2001. I go 9/11, and I go into class, and I'm the only Middle Eastern person there, and everybody's looking at me like you did it, kind of, right? And there was a lot of conversation, and I realized along my masters that my professors who were teaching Middle Eastern uh, conflict resolution, most of them hadn't even been to the Middle East. They've never been. All their education is from a few books that other people wrote who also have not been to the Middle East about the Middle East. And they don't know the culture, they don't speak the language. So when I had to present my thesis, I said, I will walk away and I will give up my degree altogether. I don't even want it. I'll walk away. If you can name me 4 theoretical politicians or professors of politics from the Middle East teaching in the Middle East, and I'll respect that you know what you're teaching me or talking about or grading me, who is a son of that space, right? And so they couldn't. And I said, if you have any respect for yourself, you would give me my degree, and you'd be ashamed that you are earning a living from teaching something you don't know. But then when I opened my eyes around me, I realized it's all like this. There are yoga studios out there by people teaching yoga who don't even know what yoga is, but it works because they have the right plank floors, they have the right lighting, and the temperature is heated to a hot degree, and then they call it moshka yoga, and everybody goes there and they do some movements, and hooray, right? And they charge a monthly fee. So we really need to take that education back. We need to take all of this wisdom back, and like you said, tell it in that activist way through your own lens. So I love the activist part of you that's doing this. Last question, and we're going to completely switch gears here. The elephant in the room, so to speak. A lot of people will look at your profile and they will say, environmentalist, artist, fighting for all these things, indigenous rights, and all of this talk. And on the other side, over 2 decades at Procter and Gamble. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is, here's my theory. Nestle, Procter and Gamble, all these other companies, they're not evil. They're not doing anything bad, in my opinion. They're perfectly healthy, good companies. The problem is, like you talked about for the whole hour, us. When I go into Walmart and I agree to purchase something that is minimally priced but destroys the planet, I am telling Procter and Gamble's research department or their sales team that calls Walmart and says, which of our products moved, which do we need to send more of? I'm telling them directly that, hey, I'm buying. You send it over. Send all the garbage over because I'm consuming it. And don't send the organic stuff. Don't send the eco-friendly stuff. No. Why would I pay $7 for something I can get for 99 cents? I don't care about the environmental effect. I'm buying. And so Nestle will sell plastic bottled water. Procter & Gamble will sell all the toxic stuff. If I, as a consumer, went into Walmart day in and day out and didn't buy those products, after the first round of losses where Procter & Gamble has to throw all these plastics into the ocean, that's only one time they're going to do that. Because after that, they're going to say, none of this plastics move. We have to make all of it in these recyclable formats, in these compostable formats, in this eco-sustainable formats, because the consumer is asking for that. I also respect that you said, I got a small grant, from the Arts Council in Ohio, and I put the rest of money myself. Well, obviously, you have an income that allows you to do that. Now, there's a lot of filmmakers who don't have that income that allows them to do that, and with that grant, they'll never be able to make the film. So, in that sense, I say that's where community comes in. Again, the indigenous education of community, because you cannot do it all on your own. So, if we need to buy water at $4 instead of 50 cents, and we don't all have $4, well, why don't our communities, that 1 mile radius, come together and say, let's pitch in so that we can subsidize the $4 to a balanced equilibrium point where everybody can afford it. Maybe it's not 50 cents, but it's $1. Now, maybe the population can afford the water at $1 instead of the 50 cents, and they're willing to contribute a little more for all that health. That's the way we should do it. You are specifically in the sector of Procter & Gamble as a leader in that sector. You're not an employee, you're a director, you're a leader of the sector, trying to bring sustainability to the corporation and shifting along with the times and the needs of the time. So I want you to speak to the audience before you get stereotyped and judged and all of those things. I want you to speak to the audience about how Procter & Gamble is making those changes, how you are influencing those changes, and how the community has a role and has a participatory role in what comes out of a corporation as large as Procter & Gamble, so that I can defend you in that way.
So Procter & Gamble, if you look at our motto, we are all about touching lives and improving life. So that's where we begin. That's in our DNA, right? I'm really proud to work at P&G because they have many, many sustainability programs. People can find that online at thepg.com. And within P&G, I work in information technology area, but I'm part of many different initiatives. I volunteer and go do that, right? And the company allows you and gives you space for employees to go contribute. So the idea is, are you part of the problem? Or are you part of the solution, right? And they conduct day in, day out product research, consumer research. So whatever the trends, whatever the consumer are asking, that we have to provide. That's the value equation we need to bring together, right? So I and my colleagues, we do what we can for the environment. So we bring best of the best in the world. We have sustainability engineers, sustainability PhDs, postdocs, and everybody there. And these are the best of the brains. They come together and say, how can I make this better? And we have a massive program about restoring water, preserving water, using less water, giving clean water. So we have multi-million-dollar programs out there which are contributing. Again, you talked about some things don't get attention, right? So we do have all these programs. Every year, I organize a program where we give away trees to employees to go plant in their community. And we are scaling that every year, making it bigger and bigger. So this is something not part of my core work, but I go do that. I lead that effort. And then we also have a annual event or on and off event during the year where employees go clean the river, right? The company, buses us to the river and we clean the river, right? So, and we, at our manufacturing plants and distribution center and offices, we have ways to save the water and, zero waste programs. And we're all trained and educated on how to follow this. We have metrics around it. We have accountability around this, right? In one of my roles, a few years ago, I was the global printing service manager. So I helped digitize many different paper-based processes into digital processes. So we saved the company a lot of money. Printing is expensive. And we also saved company a lot of time because when it's digital, the process moves faster. Every minute is millions of dollars for us. And so these are the kinds of programs that we do. And this movie is going to give, and then is going to bring that forward, right? Some of my colleagues are going to see this movie. And also the company supports the indigenous cultures. So, that is also part of this movie. So, it's, to me, it's not something different that I'm doing. I wear a different hat here. I wear a different hat here. Movie
Mm-hmm.
making
Mm-hmm.
is in itself is very digital, very strategic, very IT oriented process. It has creative component to it. Same thing at work. So it's it's very strategic, very creative communication, and bringing all of it together. To save money, to save time, and bring the message out, right? So we are always innovating. And why don't want to work for a company like this and actually be part of the solution?
Exactly. And that's the education that people should also research before they go pointing fingers and blame and all those things. And for me, this is a historical education. I mean, speaking of the Western world, you go back to Jesus. And there was an episode where there was a woman who was going to get stoned and he interfered. I use this example often, and he interfered and he said, wait, hold on. You know, he who hasn't sinned cast the first stone. And here it's the same thing repeatedly, and there's almost 3 billion Christian people. This is a very fundamental value of Christianity. And you see it again in Islam, you see it in Hinduism, you see it in many cultures, this blame game, and religions as well, and ways of life. You see it in Buddhism as well, in existence. And the thing is, don't keep blaming, don't keep finding fault, because when we all die, we're going to die together. Like, try to be the solution. Like you said, try to be part of the solution. So look at Procter & Gamble and say, what are they doing right? If they're doing 1% right, attach yourself to that 1% so it becomes 2%. Don't look at it as, oh, they're doing 99% wrong. No. Look at the 1%. Find that 1%. They're doing a lot more than 1%, but I'm saying if you only can find the 1%, grab onto that so that 1% becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 5, becomes 10, eventually becomes 99% of the corporation, right? That's the way forward. So that's why I really wanted to bring that up. I think it's important for people to start understanding it from the way you're talking it. And you should take this to P&G as well and say, the billions of dollars you guys spend on marketing, can you please spend $5 million on exactly what you said here, on their platforms? Because I've never been to P&G's website to research any of those things. I don't think many people do. But if you have a social media campaign about all of the things that you do and kind of showcase it, just like nonprofits have to do to be able to raise funding, for you guys, you said, millions of dollars per minute. That's nothing. Give me 5 minutes of your time. I'll build you a campaign that will essentially show the world that you're not evil. You're participating in the solution. So thank you for explaining that to people. And when you are going to launch the film, I will gladly also place the film on our Compassiviste film space, so you can have another angle to showcase the film. And I will also raise a fundraiser, a charitable campaign attached to the film, where when people watch the film, if their participation is through donation or anything like that, so that we can raise funding and pass it on to you, so that you can continue increasing the elements of the tree planting and the cleaning of the river and all the other things that you're actually using the money for. Because whatever money you're making from this film is not buying you a new Ferrari. It's actually going towards all of these causes. It's going towards making the world better. So there's no better way than I can be involved and participate in my capacity than to say, hey, I'm going to showcase your film on our page, and I'm going to click a donation button there too. So after people watch the film, they can directly donate, and we can forward those funds to you so that they can, we can be a part of this resurrection that you've created through this film. Padma, thank you very much for speaking on Compassiviste Dialogues, and thank you for your artistic contribution to environmentalism, Indigenous education, and inclusivity advocacy, inequality, and spirituality through this film, through your center, through your teaching, through the charitable work and participation that you do, and in the way that you even approach your employment and everything you stand for in your life. I really appreciate, and I find it very noble, and I'm honored to really be in this conversation and learning so much from you. I pray that you do take this existential challenge we face, firstly, to your community as you are, and to really make this a reality for us, to be able to see ourselves in the world we live in, to be able to connect, to be able to become one, and to understand sustainability. To our audience, please subscribe to Compassiviste Dialogues channel and share this and watch this and donate to this when we post it on Compassiviste Film, so that we can actually help Padma make film number 2, number 3, number 4, and to help all the initiatives with the tree plantings and the national and international work that she wants to do through the impact of this film. All links to Padma Chebrolu, Passage of the River, and the Cultural Center of India, along with Compassiviste, are listed below. And as a parting lesson, I'm going to tell people again, Padma tells you to participate in your environment and in your community. So please listen to her, and let's do that together. Thank you very much, Padma. Namaste. We're here to help change the world together. I'm Ali Horia.
Thank you.